there, dude?
Pretty good. How are you?
Okay, I guess initially I thought I would be building this in 5 years and then sailing around the world on an 8-year trip and raise a family. So even in my wildest projections, it would be about an 8-year trip going around the world. I'd return and find a whole nother line of something to get into.
Sure.
It was never going to be my whole life. It was just going to be an adventure in it.
Wow, very spacious. Yeah.
This is a great man cave.
Yeah.
I've lived in it 6 winters and I'd like nothing better than to be snowed in here.
Oh yeah, I can see why.
It would take 3-quart of wood
Okay.
to keep it warm.
And you kept a wood stove here? in
I
the
kept
middle
a
of the
big wood
boat?
stove. It was cozy as can be.
Mhm. And you lined the walls with the tin foil to protect
Well, to
the
try to
wood.
reflect the heat back, and
Uh-huh.
and that worked out really well too. I sort of lucked with the ash. I didn't know what the ash would do.
Okay, so the ash is what you built all of your cabinetry with?
It's all the white stuff. It just keeps it light in here. You
Yeah.
know, if everything is
Right,
tropical
yeah.
hardwood
Yeah,
and it's a cloudy day, boats are dark.
yeah,
You know, they're gloomy,
yeah,
and the white
reflects.
keeps it a little bit brighter. That's the reason for the ash.
Okay, so you slept in here for 6 different winters. What were some of the conditions under which you were having to live?
You know, it's a typical winter. I mean, I loved being snowed in, you know,
Okay.
where there's a blizzard raging outside. I have food and drink in here, computers, books.
Okay,
I can stay in here for days, and did at times, you
Okay.
know. Sometimes the storms would rage for days.
Yeah. So this would be 2 bunks.
2 bunks.
Yep. And storage.
Just a little bit of storage.
And then I guess access to the chain locker, but that's only if something's going wrong, right? And most of the time you're up here with the.
Most of the time you're up here, but you want to make sure that the chain's going where it's supposed to go. And
Okay.
it's actually 2 chains. It's got a whole 2 chains down there. There's 2 anchors.
Right.
So it's make sure that it's separating.
So when you pull it up, someone should be underneath here.
Well, they definitely should be poking their head in there and make sure it's going where it's supposed to go.
Okay.
But they'll probably be here with a hose,
Yeah.
you know,
Cleaning it
just
off.
clean off the mud.
Yep.
And this came out really well. This is the last thing that I've been working on, is fabricating this metal
Right.
for the boat and all the other metal for it as well. And then when we put this together, it looks like it's pretty simple, but the 2 big bolts there that hold that flange, they had to pop through the interior of the boat. There's such a taper.
Like down here, straight down.
Yes.
Okay.
One of them pops through 3 inches south and 2 inches east, and the other one pops through 3 inches south, 2 inches west of where they go in at the top.
Right.
Not easy to do,
Yeah.
but they both worked out. And now there's a big 1/4-inch plate that ties that all together. I mean, it really came out well, as good as it could come out.
So you had to drill it from the bottom up or down?
No, from the top down.
Top down. Okay. But you had to really get that right.
Yeah, there's only one place for it to come through.
Yeah.
And it worked out both places.
Nice.
Not bad, considering I'm sick and
Measure twice, drill once, right?
actually 4 times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the skylight.
Okay.
Came out pretty good. My friend Tom actually built it. I designed it, but he did a great job. I installed it. And these things lift up a little bit. Actually, there's one mast that's like right here.
Oh, okay.
And then the other mast is just this side of that forward hatch.
Oh, it's all the way up there. Okay. Huh. Wow. So one mast will actually sit right here, huh? Right in the middle.
Right around here.
Okay.
The thing is about this boat, there's 3 separate areas and they're all divided by a bulkhead.
Right.
So the only way you can get back and forth is through the deck. And that affords you privacy, actually. let alone.
Right, and then that's integral to the boat, right? It's to make it like less sinkable.
Yes, the bulkheads are a very seaworthy feature. You would get a very, very high Coast Guard rating with this boat.
Okay.
Probably put 60 people on it, believe it or not.
60 people.
Yep.
Wow.
Just because of those bulkheads.
Huh.
That means that the boat can't sink.
Right, right. Absolutely. So if you hit a container that fell off a ship or something.
Which is exactly what could happen.
Right. What kind of wood is this?
This is Honduras mahogany. I built both of these rails. The inner rail is a cut rail. The outer rail actually is a steamed rail. So every piece got steamed.
Into the curve of the...
For the curve.
Yeah. Wow.
I had a big jig on this side of the boat that was 47 feet long and 7 feet off the ground, and it was quite a production with a steam box and, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, heating with firewood to make the fire, to make the steam. I mean, I was doing it in the evenings after work, and it took me a couple weeks solid.
Yeah.
So when you come in here, the best way to do it is go down backwards.
Okay. I don't know, let's start at the front, maybe work our way back.
Okay.
So
unfortunately, these cushions aren't out, but it's just if everything was where it's supposed to be, it becomes even more comfortable. You know. But,
so which was that favorite bunk of yours?
right,
This one here. Okay. Yeah.
bunk.
Yeah.
This is a pretty big bunk too, actually. There's 5 drawers here.
Right.
There's 13 different compartments in here.
Oh wow.
For storing different stuff. And then there's 2 more storage on either side, and the seat's got storage in it as well.
Okay.
And then there's something for your feet that kind of lock right into here, and it's also got storage. This boat's got as much storage in it as you can possibly put in it.
Right. Oh yeah.
And this here is a mast step. This is where the big mast will lock in to the keel.
So 1 bilge pump per bulkhead compartment?
Except for this one, which got 2.
Oh, okay, okay. 2.
There's 1 there, there's 2 here, and there's 1 in the aft.
Gotcha.
Tom, my friend who first started to help me, who's the cabinet maker, I mean, I tried to get him. I said I need a table built, and
Right.
He did a beautiful job. I mean, you can't tell how good a job this is unless it was all opened up.
Right,
They're tied together, but there's like little leaves that spring out to hold things up. And
Wow, look at that. That's cool.
this comes up like this.
Right.
That comes up like that.
Oh man.
It all locks together, and then even at the top, it's almost perfect. I mean, so
Right.
it's just not easy to get that, and he did it.
Oh yeah.
It's just a design plan boat. I mean, I picked Jay Benford, and he had probably a little plan pamphlet that had 40 of his designs in it, and I went with this design because it was called Comfortable Cruiser.
That sounds pretty good.
Magnets of lead are about this big with 2 little tabs to pick them up.
Okay.
And you stack them. They're designed. You've got a taper tube, so you can stack them really tight.
Oh, okay.
And so they're stacked in the bottom, and then they were masoned with masonry cement in place. There's actually 2 water tanks here that are about 100 gallons each. Plus, there's a 30-gallon tank that really isn't tied into anything, kind of almost underneath your 1 foot there.
Oh, okay. Right
That
here.
was going to be used for storing waste,
Right.
but I've decided that I'm going to go with an organic toilet instead.
Oh, yeah, like a composting.
Composting
Yeah.
toilet.
The captain's table, right?
It's the chart table, that's correct. With
Yeah.
storage, and that big drawer on top is big enough to put maps out flat.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually they're curled up.
Right.
This way they'll be able to pull flat, pull them up, put them down. And
Right.
there's enough storage there for electronics and stuff. Plus you got your own window.
Here you've got your electrical panel. Man, not a whole lot. I mean,
You could have a lot more, it could easily be twice as big.
right.
I'm trying to keep it simple.
Right. Yeah, the old KISS mentality. Yep.
It's the bathroom that you're looking at right
Oh,
now.
okay.
So it's really the boat's head.
Right.
And it's a shower on the right-hand side, a sink on the left, and then just more storage. Another bunk. This is actually supposed to be the captain's bunk. I thought it was just way too small.
Right.
So I just made it into like a little double bunk with storage underneath it.
Talk about the kitchen here. So
Okay, so
it's pretty sizable. I mean, man, look at this.
certainly could turn out anything on it. I decided to go with a alcohol stove because they're the safest.
Okay.
Kerosene are just too stinky. Gas stoves blow up every year.
Huh.
So I go with an alcohol stove. You can get alcohol just about everywhere in cans. And this is just a panel to access the wiring.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So you're not crawling around underneath and
Nope,
stuff.
it's real easy. Just open it up and do what you gotta do. And right now we're putting in light fixtures. I bought a bunch of light fixtures, and the last thing Tom was doing last year was installing them, and actually pulled them off of it because of the weather was changing.
What's in here?
That's a refrigerator, actually.
Oh, okay.
Right now it's pretty covered up, but
You access it from the top?
from right here,
Oh, okay, yeah.
the little panel.
Yep. Little ice box. Now, is that going to be? It's like an electric fridge.
That will have a little electric
Okay.
compressor.
Yeah.
To turn it cold, and it's got 4 inches of insulation, rigid insulation around it on all sides.
My name is Garrett Grassi, and I've been helping with this boat for 3 years now this summer. Got connected through Tom, who has been working here on and off for, 4 or 5 years, and he brought me in to do some of the metalworking, and then I could do painting and other things professionally, so it's kind of a
Yeah.
it's kind of a full-on job with, like, you know, you're building structural woodworking, marrying it with structural metalworking, and it's engineering, so it kind of was a natural fit. And then you gotta read some blueprints and just kind of realize that this is like major stresses you're designing against. Yeah, weather and just water and pressure and buoyancy and all these different things, and your craft work has to really be just perfection. And yeah, they built a lot of you could just see all the time and effort that went into every little wooden washer,
Yeah.
plug, exotic hardwoods everywhere. You gotta be a little bit odd, off the beaten path to create such a monstrously large craft. And these here are the spreaders, which are kind of very necessary, of course, sailing
Yeah. Piece.
component. And these are getting these
Oh, they're wood. Wow.
kind of customized to each one because he sculpted these some time ago. Basically, this is an uneven catch, and so he's got these 2 long ones here
Uh huh.
for the first ring up here on the mast, and they'll stick pretty much straight out. And then there's a secondary. Here's the first spreader joint.
Right.
We had to shimmy this on this pretty well sculpted beam, but it's oval and it's stretched and it's naturally checking in a spiral pattern because it's a tree.
Right. Right.
It's a real tree, you know, full, just straight on tree mast. And so they'll slide on here
Okay.
and spread the beams out, and then these tabs need to be welded onto these rolled rings, and then everything gets drilled out, which is very hard metal to drill
Right.
by hand. Stainless.
Like this needs to be welded to the
Nope,
spreaders.
this is kind of welded to itself, and much like hot rodding, there's some things are good to be welded, and
Okay.
other things are good to be bolted without
Okay.
a weld. It's
Right.
just the nature of it. And then there's the booms that are still wrapped up. They get a cap on the end, and and then they'll get painted in nice white, and these long spiral checks will just sort of take on moisture through them. They've been sealed so many times, it's
Oh, really?
drums and drums of oil so saturated in.
Huh.
So they'll close up when they sense moisture, much like the rudder has cracks in it.
Oh, okay.
That is, they're like swell joints in concrete. So these was put together fairly tight, and it's just
Oh, okay.
continuing a very good process of opening and closing a little. And this is greenheart, so this is a specific wood for this rudder, and it'll really lock up when it's out on the water.
Right.
We just put in the Samson posts for the bow area. The windlass is in for the anchors. Yeah, it's a classic sailor anchor.
Yep.
And then the plow style. So it's a little of everything. It's like it's the final painting. There's some texture that goes on the deck that gets painted in with sand so that you can't, slip around when you're rigging. And the masts are now a reality. We have to eventually get a crane and put those in. They mortise into square seats right inside. And pretty soon he's gonna have to pick out a propeller. It could be a variety. Some of them collapse. So he's close. He's it's a long going project to keep with all these years.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of room on the inside here.
Well, there's two panels here that cover up where we just stepped through down to the engine.
Right.
And this will be a bunk. I mean, I made this so it's like a little cabin.
Yeah. So this is all covered up. It's one big bunk.
You come down through the hatches to get here, and
Right.
there's these ladders. Are they in here? Yeah. These
Oh,
two
yeah,
ladders that you climb down onto this bunk here.
Oh yeah, okay. Those ladders will be.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's completely apart, and you really don't catch what it's about till it's
Sure.
sorted together. Yanmar's just got a good reputation, and they had a boat in the yard that hadn't been touched for almost 10 years, and it had a Yanmar engine, and it turned right over. And that's pretty much why I decided to go with Yanmar.
Oh,
I
nice.
said that's good enough for me. And so this is a brand new engine. I did everything in this cabin myself except for the hooking up the plumbing.
Right.
Right now is get the engine running, get all the hardware on so I can measure for sails.
Yeah.
Get the anchoring system completely working, so if I gotta put this in the water, I can tie up where I gotta tie up, and I
Yeah.
can drop the anchor to where I need to.
Yep.
So that's where we're headed to this year.
Right. And then what about this system here? This is a pretty neat.
This is
Setup.
Tom's idea. It's the batteries, and he put a
You know,
sliding. I don't want to break anything. I
Right.
don't know how it works yet.
But yeah. Basically
Anyways,
this
the
pulls
battery
out.
system and the things to house it basically, and basically this is so you can pull it out and deal with it.
Right.
This thing right here, I mean, this is the floor where you would put your feet on.
Right.
It'll have a slight grate. All right, that's not in just so that we can get in there. Otherwise, you're
Right.
coming in here through the hatches, and it's just not as easy.
Right.
And we protected all the wires with, this gray plastic that's got ribs in it, just
Right.
for protection, just so it isn't chafing.
Yep.
And
Which that, along with everything, is just you said is overbuilt. Not
Right.
something that people normally do.
no, they don't do that at all.
Yeah.
So if we went anywhere with this boat, I mean, it was always like build it better, build it stronger.
Right.
You know?
Right. So, how many times would you say that you fell off the boat?
I didn't know he did that.
No, did you ever?
Twice.
Twice. Okay.
I was lucky both times.
Huh.
There's just so much stuff at the bottom, you don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
what you're gonna land on. The draft of this is 6'9".
6'9". All right. And the beam?
14'9".
Okay.
to the inside of the planking.
All right.
And the length?
It's 46 to the inside of the planking. I think approximately 57 tip to tip, but I haven't put a tape on it yet because it's not completely done.
Yeah.
Right.
I tried not to change the design of this boat, if at all possible, because I don't know, I'm not a boat architect, you know, everything's got to balance correctly. So I changed a few things, but not too much really. This is pretty much like he spelled it out.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a name for the boat.
Lacey.
Tell the story behind the name.
Just the best dog I ever had.
What kind was he?
She was a female shepherd, and the male, I'm not even sure what it was. It was either a lab or it was a Newfoundland, because that's what the guy had. The males were labs in Newfoundland, and he had a couple black female shepherds.
And how old was Lacey when she died?
She was like 11 or 12.
Okay.
She got shot.
Oh,
That was the problem.
by a hunter. Was that on the farm?
No, actually, it was where I lived in Cragsmore.
Okay.
The guy had a little pond there, and Lacey used to go and just drink from the pond. And he also had dogs of his own, big shepherds. And when I first moved next to him, his shepherd came to visit Lacey and brought a big deer bone, like an entire leg,
Huh.
to share. To, you know, hey,
Yeah.
we're neighbors.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
want to be your friend.
And unfortunately, that drew her to his pond to get drinks occasionally, and he was just an asshole, and he shot her with a pellet gun.
Oh.
They ended up shooting each other in the house, and I wasn't sorry to hear that happen.
You mean the people killed each other?
Yes. Yes. I was happy to hear that happen,
Oh
actually.
my goodness.
But somebody went nuts.
Oh my goodness, it's horrible.
Wow.
Oh,
He deserved it. He shot my dog.
Right.
You know,
my
for no reason. I
Yeah.
mean, for no reason.
Right.
My dog wasn't doing anything but drinking from
yeah,
his pond.
yeah, no
Right.
big deal.
Right.
So, I mean,
Wow.
finally karma kicked in on something.
Yeah. Oh.
Anyway, if this boat is as good as Lacey, it'll last a long, long time.
Uh-huh.
You know, she's a
Yeah.
tough dog.
Yeah.
Very loyal, very faithful.
So when you grew up in Basking Ridge,
Yeah.
but then you decided to go around the world. So that was a bit unusual. So what made you think that? To do
Just
that?
wanted to see the world. You know, I didn't want to go to college and go to 13th grade and 14th grade. I was just, you know, I had enough school. So I figured, let's travel. And
Okay.
I did. And I saw about half the world over a 10-month period,
And how did you do that?
mostly hitchhiking. So from that point, and we were in Tunisia, we went back to Frankfurt, Germany. We found a used Volkswagen bus street. And for $400, we bought a used Volkswagen bus that took us all the way to India from there.
Wow.
Well, we started out in Europe, and basically, from the time we bought that van, most of our bills were paid for because we ran a little bus service.
Oh,
We'd go to an American Express office, we'd put in a sign saying so much to the next big city. It was always cheaper than the train or the bus, so we always filled up our car.
oh,
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we'd stop at a cheap hotel, let them go in, and we'd sleep in the Volkswagen bus. But
Oh.
it paid for our gas, paid for our food, and actually from Frankfurt, it paid for us to go all the way to India like that. Well, went through Turkey. At the time, Turkey's mountains passes shut down because of the snow for maybe a couple months. So there was urgency to get through that before they maybe shut down. And we tried to do that. We actually bought a set of chains just for the tires for getting over that mountain pass. And we tried to put them on. They were the wrong size, it turned out. Later on, we ended up exchanging them for something else, and that was a really good exchange. But the purpose for buying the chains to get over the Turkish mountains, that did not work. But we got through anyway. The neatest country I ever went to was Afghanistan. It hadn't changed in 5,000 years. There was like a dirt road that connected 3 cities that ran through it. There wasn't even a railroad, you know, there. So it was very primitive, and it just had not changed. I mean, you see guys traveling around with these ancient rifles that were 100 years old from the last British war that
Yeah.
got fought in that area.
Wow.
And the food in Iran was unbelievably great. I think Iran is actually a pretty together country based on just what they ate. The food was so good that when we left it, I tried to get the guy I was going with to go back for a couple weeks just to eat. And you would get, every restaurant had this. It was their standard meal throughout the country. You get a big plate of rice. It's called cello kebab. It's rice and kebab. And so you get this big plate of fluffy rice, which reminds me of risotto actually. I mean, it was that kind of taste and fluffiness. And then they would give you a big bowl of butter. I mean, like a half a pound of butter. And you'd melt the butter in the rice, and then they would give you a big bowl of yogurt. And you take the yogurt and you pour that all over the rice, and you sort of make this great concoction. And then they would give you bread that was the size of a plate. So you pull off a piece of plate, and they give you 2 or 3 shish kebabs and a couple pieces of shish kebab, and you scoop up the big thing of rice and yogurt and butter. It's like, this is a meal that sticks. And it was delicious and, you know, very inexpensive, and it seemed to have it, they have it in every restaurant we went there.
So you came back from that trip, and then what happened?
I was urged to go to college.
Right, which you did.
Which I did. And I
Okay.
went through college and I graduated in about 3.5 years and
Okay.
got a degree in management. Well, then I was bored. Then it's
Okay.
like, well, if this is life, I need more.
Okay.
Well, I thought I was on a trip all the way to Patagonia, and I really just got into Mexico a little bit, and I kind of got set up and rocked. And they literally took everything I had, and the next morning I'm sitting in a pair of jeans on the side of the road, sort of bloody, and started to hitchhike either direction just for a ride, and nobody was picking me up. Finally, a pickup truck with a little camper on it with 2 girls in it and a guy stopped to pick me up, and it was only because the girls told him to. He wasn't going to do it. He didn't want me in the car.
So you had bare feet, no top, just jeans.
Right. No identification, not a
They
dime
took
on
everything.
me. Everything.
They drove off.
I drove
All
on.
your goodies.
All my goodies.
And you had hair
But
down
you had your
here.
Levi's though.
I did have
See, I didn't know
Levi's.
that. I thought you had underwear on, actually.
No, Levi's.
And wasn't your hair really long at that point, like almost down to your waist almost? I mean, it was really
Yeah, I had a
long.
ponytail.
Yeah. Long ponytail.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't like hippies over there.
Actually, I got ripped off by gringos, you know, who were
Really?
who were
I
in
didn't know
Mexico.
that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. All this
No.
time I didn't know that.
No,
Okay.
it wasn't Mexicans. It was
So
actual
did you walk
gringos.
in the American consulate like that?
Well, at one point in time, we were going north, and we did go into American consulate, and they did stop, and I said, I just want to report that my passport's stolen. That's
Yeah.
all. And that's all I really did. And
So
they-
you got over the border with no trouble?
when you got to the border, they asked me a couple of questions. They wanted to hear my accent.
Yeah.
Right.
And as soon as they realized that I was American, there was no issue. I didn't need
So in
anything.
those days, you could easily go across the border without
Yes.
any trouble. Okay.
Yeah,
So
without
you
a
got back in the
passport.
country.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Well, the other boat, which is right next door, which I bought early into this project from a friend of mine who was just more knowledgeable than myself, he got sick and he had to sell his boat.
How old was he?
When I first met him, I think he was almost 70, you know, and I thought he was like 20 years younger. And where he was at, which was Marlboro on the Hudson, they were pushing him to get out of the yard. They wanted to put a new clubhouse where his building was. And so they forced him to do that. And he did get sick to the point that he didn't think he'd be able to handle the boat, you know, so he started to sell it. And I ended up buying it for $15,000. I thought it was worth 6 times as much at that time. And I just couldn't, you know, live with the fact that that's all it's selling for.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up buying it for that. And, you know, I put
50. That's it. 15,000.
15 grand.
Wow.
That's why I bought it. And then I did put some time into it, probably 4,000 hours,
Wow.
which is, you know, a couple of years.
Yeah.
And especially if you only get 500 a year in it, it starts to chew into years. And it was only after that I put all that time in that, I said, that was a mistake. You know, you don't have time to build 2 of these, you don't have barely time to build 1, you know.
Right.
So then I started to focus on this, and I've sort of been on it ever since.
Okay, now, didn't you search for him up and down the coast though?
Somebody had told me there was a guy building a boat just like mine on the Hudson. And yeah, I did. I hit the shore, I went all the way down to the Tappan Zee Bridge, stopped at every marina
Right.
to look for him. And I finally found the boat in Marlborough, which is north of Newburgh a little bit. But he wasn't there, but I knew that was the boat.
Okay.
And then I just, revisited it and caught him, and we became really close friends quick.
And it's same plans? Like same...
It's a strip plank boat covered with glass epoxy laminated, which is a
Okay.
very specific way to build a boat.
Mm-hmm.
There's 50 different ways to build a boat. That's just one of them.
Right.
So I consider myself fortunate to find somebody who's 15 years ahead of me building what I'm building.
Yeah.
So I would try to go down there every other week for
Mm-hmm.
a couple hours. We just hang out together. We talk about boats.
Wow.
So that one you moved here with a small little motor.
With a small little motor, I basically had to move it to the yard. The second yard that I had moved it to in Newburgh got sold, and I either had to start paying him more money than I wanted to or move the boat, so I moved the boat. So we put the boat in the water, and we tie up a 17-foot, 100 horsepower motorboat alongside of it, and it's all trimmed out so that it's not veering either way or the other. And it was a good bumper that was tied up against, so it was rigid. And we just, put the throttle down about 1/3, and everybody got on the big boat where I had clamped a tiller arm to the tiller, so it was very functional. And we used that to come up the river. And
Is this the Hudson River?
the Hudson River, about 40 or 50 miles. I don't even think it's that far.
That's still pretty far though.
Yeah, no, you're not gonna row it for sure.
Yeah. Right.
So I tried to do that, and at one point in time, the boat ran out of gas, and they had to disconnect the little boat from the big boat and go back and get some gas, which they did. And alarms sounded on the little boat, and despite these guys being pretty knowledgeable, nobody figured out that they were about to blow the engine. And that's what the alarm sounded for. They needed more oil. You had to back off on the throttle. And so, but before they got back to the boat, they burned up an engine. It kind of drifted back down the river into the marina. And then they had to get home. And I didn't hear from them for 16 hours, something like that. Knowing that they're not going to abandon me, they'll let me know what's going on, but I didn't know the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a towing service here called, I forget what they're called, but I had their number and I talked to them on the phone. I was just sort of requesting information about, if I had to go to them, what it would cost and what we were talking about. And they immediately jumped in their boat and ran down to where I was parked to try to get a job. And I wouldn't let them hook up because I said, I didn't call you. My friends are coming back. So we actually had not a war, but he was threatening to sue me, Hey, I got you on a recording. I said, you got nothing on a recording,
Yeah.
Anyway, I did not pay him. My friends did come back with the other boat with a little 10 or 11 horse engine sitting next to the 100 horse engine.
Uh-huh.
But believe it or not, that was enough to push us up against the current and get us to where we had to go. Even though this tow service was telling us it would never work and that we'd probably sink.
And they wanted to charge $800, right?
Yeah, $800.
In upstate New York, initially, on a farm, and you had to do it outside the barn because it didn't fit in the barn, right? So I think it's interesting how you got it out of there.
I heard something about a power line.
Yes,
What?
a power line problem.
Well, you start to build the boat up and you get to the point where you're interfering with street lights, and then it becomes very expensive to move these because all the street lights have to be disassembled. And you need electrical people, you need cops to deal with the traffic. It could easily cost tens of thousands of dollars to come the 1 hour on the road that I did if in fact they had to start taking lights apart. So I kept going up until I realized that it was time to move the boat and it needed to come to this yard. So I'm real happy that I was able to move this boat from the farm to here for about $3,200. The guy who moved the boat, he was the issue. He was fighting it the whole time. He was
Oh.
complaining. He was whining.
Oh,
You know.
oh, I thought you were doing it.
No,
Oh.
I mean I hired a guy with a truck who
Okay.
does
Okay.
nothing but move boats,
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
and he was the source of complaints and basically crying about nothing.
So tell me more about when you had it and you had to turn it over. That was interesting.
Flipping it over wasn't really that easy, in that you had to build sort of a rack to tie into on the side of the boat just to lock it in so you could spin it. And I I talked about 8 or 10 people to come down there and help me do this project. And it would have gone really well if the one friend hadn't tightened up the one pulley.
Okay.
And he said, "Oh, this seems really loose." I said, "It was supposed to be loose." He said, "So don't tighten it much." And he over-tightened it, and the pulley cracked with some weight on it. And now instead of turning with a 12-inch pulley, one of the corners is a 1-inch bolt. So that makes the wire, curl right up. I mean, it just changed the whole dynamics of being able to turn the boat. I mean, it became a pain in the ass. And that was mostly me letting it get away from me, letting other people start to make decisions. So it's okay, we still got it done.
And it took longer than I thought is really the whole reason.
Yeah.
1 year stretched into a decade, which stretched into another decade, and now I'm 3.5 decades into this. It's just a tremendous amount of hours. I probably have 16,000 hours in this project and 300 plus grand, something like that. So you have to have the money to actually work on it and the time kind of allocated. I mean, I did actually pretty good because if I work 6 months a year, Saturday and Sunday, 10 hours a day, that's 500 hours.
Yeah.
It's hard to get 500 hours on this because you've sucked off every weekend, and girlfriends don't like that.
Right.
But that's just what it takes. And what did I do? I finished one summer, Saturdays and Sundays, 20 hours a week, and that's all I accomplished. Which in a 16,000 hour project, you see why this goes on for decades.